The sun hung low on the horizon, casting an eerie golden hue over the vast ocean. Waves lapped gently against the rocky shores of a remote island, an isolated stretch of land where few dared to venture. It was supposed to be a place of peace, a refuge from the turmoil of the world beyond. But today, the winds carried with them a sense of dread. Far below the surface, something stirred. An ancient predator, thought to be a myth, had awakened from its deep slumber. Godzilla, the king of monsters, was nowhere in sight. The world had no idea that a greater force was emerging, one born from the darkest depths of the sea. The Megalodon, the largest predator ever to roam the earth, had surfaced, hungry, relentless, and seeking domination. The tension in the air was palpable as the ocean's surface rippled with ominous power, foretelling an impending clash of titans. Suddenly, the calm was shattered by a deafening roar. It was Godzilla, and he was coming, breaking through the waves like an unstoppable force of nature. His massive frame emerged from the depths, eyes burning with fury. With each step, the sea trembled under the weight of his immense power. The stage was set. A battle of biblical proportions was about to unfold, and no one on Earth was prepared for the chaos that would ensue. The roar of Godzilla echoed across the island, reverberating through the trees and shaking the very earth beneath their feet. It was a battle for the oceans, a fight to determine who would reign supreme. And it would all begin here. As Godzilla and Megalodon faced off in the open ocean, the world seemed to stand still. The air was thick with anticipation, and every ripple in the water felt like the precursor to destruction. The massive creatures locked eyes, their primal instincts kicking in as they sized each other up. Godzilla's muscular form stood tall, every sinew in his body tensed in preparation for the coming fight. Meanwhile, the Megalodon's sharp eyes gleamed from within the depths, its enormous jaws gaping in anticipation of its first strike. It had been centuries since a predator of its size had ruled the ocean, and it was not about to let this upstart challenge its supremacy. The ocean, once peaceful and serene, had become the battleground for the two fiercest creatures to ever walk the earth. With a low growl, Godzilla stepped forward, sending a shockwave through the water as his massive foot pressed down. It was a warning shot, signaling the beginning of the clash. The Megalodon responded, its massive tail swishing violently, creating massive whirlpools as it prepared to strike. The battle for the ocean was about to begin in earnest, and neither would back down. The waves grew higher, the sky grew darker, and the sea became their arena, a place where only one could emerge victorious. The clash began with an earth-shattering roar from Godzilla. The ocean trembled beneath his colossal weight as he moved, charging toward the Megalodon with a fury that seemed to echo across the seas. His massive tail whipped through the air, creating a wake of destruction in his path. The Megalodon responded with primal aggression, its giant jaws snapping shut with an explosive force that sent a shower of water into the air. It was a battle between titans, each blow reverberating across the ocean, as waves of destruction surged around them. Godzilla's claws slashed through the water, narrowly missing the Megalodon's sleek, shark-like body. With terrifying speed, the Megalodon darted to the side, its massive jaws snapping at Godzilla's legs. The king of monsters roared in fury, countering with a blast of atomic breath. The concentrated energy tore through the water, sizzling as it impacted the Megalodon's massive form, forcing the sea creature to retreat for a moment. But the Megalodon was not deterred. With a powerful lunge, it surged forward, its enormous teeth aiming for Godzilla's vulnerable underbelly. The tension in the air was palpable. This was no longer a simple fight. It was a battle for survival. The ocean seemed to be splitting in two, the surface thrashing violently with the power of the clash. Godzilla, unrelenting, pressed his attack, unleashing another torrent of atomic breath. This time, however, the Megalodon was ready. With an agility unexpected for a creature of its size, it dived beneath the surface, narrowly avoiding the blast. The ocean erupted as Godzilla's breath scorched the water, but the Megalodon had vanished, plunging deep into the depths. For a brief moment, there was silence, only the faint ripple of disturbed water left in the wake of their battle. But this was far from over. Below the surface, the Megalodon moved with terrifying speed, its powerful body propelling it toward Godzilla's flank. From beneath the waves, it surged upward, jaws wide, aiming for a devastating strike. But Godzilla, ever the tactician, anticipated its move. With a powerful roar, he spun on his heel and swung his tail like a wrecking ball. The impact sent shockwaves through the water, knocking the Megalodon off course and sending it careening into a massive wave. The sea seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next move in this epic struggle. The waves crashed higher as the battle raged on, each clash more violent than the last. Godzilla's tail whipped around, crashing into the water with devastating force, sending splashes of water high into the air. The Megalodon, despite its immense size, was swift and agile, dodging each of Godzilla's massive attacks. The creature's jaws snapped dangerously close to Godzilla's legs, a reminder of how deadly this ancient predator could be. But Godzilla was no ordinary foe. With a roar, he unleashed another atomic breath, this time directly into the ocean. The water boiled and churned with the raw energy, creating a massive column of steam. The Megalodon, caught off guard, was thrown back by the sheer force of the explosion. And as the steam cleared, both creatures were visible, facing each other in the eye of the storm. The sea, once calm, was now a chaotic battlefield. Each of the monsters stood tall, but their bodies were battered from the fight. Their eyes locked once again, and for a moment, the battle paused, neither willing to retreat, both too powerful to yield. The island trembled beneath the weight of the battle. Waves crashed violently against the jagged rocks, sending plumes of water high into the air. Above, the dark clouds continued to swirl, as if nature itself was caught in the chaos. Godzilla and the Megalodon had paused, circling each other with growing wariness. The ocean, once a realm of peaceful beauty, had become a violent battleground. The creatures seemed to acknowledge the scale of their conflict, each trying to find the upper hand in the increasingly turbulent sea. Godzilla's thick, scaly hide glistened with the salt water, his massive tail moving slowly in preparation for another strike. The Megalodon, sleek and deadly, floated just beneath the surface, its massive dorsal fin cutting through the waves like a shark's. The atmosphere was thick with tension, each creature waiting for the other to make the first move. Despite their strength, the battle had worn them down. The ocean was now their battleground, and neither Godzilla nor the Megalodon would yield. The struggle for supremacy was far from over. Godzilla's gaze never wavered as he watched the Megalodon circle beneath the waves, the massive predatory eyes locked on him. A low growl rumbled from Godzilla's throat, his nostrils flaring as he inhaled the salty air. He had faced countless adversaries in his reign over the earth, but this ancient sea monster posed a unique challenge. Godzilla's claws dug into the rocky seabed, his body coiled like a spring, ready to unleash the power that had made him a king. Below, the Megalodon's massive form shifted silently, its sharp eyes glinting with a cold, calculating intelligence. Every movement was calculated, every strike purposeful. The ocean had always been its domain, but Godzilla had come to claim it as his own. A battle of wills was unfolding beneath the raging storm. The storm rumbled louder as if urging them to strike. Neither creature moved, yet both were ready, poised for an epic clash that would shake the very foundations of the ocean. Without warning, the Megalodon surged forward, its immense body shooting toward Godzilla with terrifying speed. Godzilla responded in kind, unleashing a blast of atomic breath that illuminated the ocean with a searing blue light. The Megalodon dove beneath the blast, avoiding the destructive energy as it streaked through the water. The impact from Godzilla's atomic breath boiled the ocean around them, sending steam rising into the air. The Megalodon re-emerged, jaws wide, aiming for Godzilla's legs. Godzilla, quick to react, spun around with a tremendous force, his tail sweeping through the water like a massive club. The Megalodon's massive body collided with Godzilla's tail, the sound of impact reverberating through the ocean. The water exploded into a frenzy, sending waves high into the air. The Megalodon was thrown back, But it was undeterred. Godzilla roared, his spine glowing with energy as he prepared for the next move. This fight was far from over. It had only just begun. The battle raged on, neither creature willing to relent. The Megalodon struck again, its enormous jaws snapping shut with terrifying force. Godzilla countered by slamming his body into the water, creating massive shockwaves that rippled through the ocean. The Megalodon's speed was unmatched, and it darted beneath Godzilla, aiming for a quick strike. But Godzilla, ever vigilant, reacted with the precision of a seasoned fighter. With a swift movement, he grabbed the Megalodon's massive body by the tail and swung it around like a rag doll. The Megalodon let out a deafening screech as it was thrown into the water, creating a massive splash. But it wasn't done yet. The Megalodon's instinct for survival was unmatched, and it swiftly regained its bearings, charging again with renewed ferocity. The ocean trembled beneath their power, the sound of their clashes echoing through the storm. As the battle continued, it became clear that this fight would be like no other. The creatures fought with an intensity born from ancient instincts, each determined to prove its dominance. Godzilla's sheer strength and unyielding nature gave him the upper hand in some moments, but the Megalodon's unmatched speed and agility allowed it to evade Godzilla's most devastating attacks. The ocean itself seemed to reflect their struggle, with every clash sending shockwaves across the waves. Water was displaced in great torrents, as the sea itself seemed to be caught in their fight for supremacy. Godzilla's monstrous form loomed over the Megalodon, but the Megalodon's jaws were still a threat, snapping and biting with an animalistic fury. Neither creature was willing to yield, their battle escalating in intensity. With each attack, the forces of nature were bent to their will, but the question remained, who would emerge victorious? The storm above them grew stronger, as if nature itself was drawing power from the fight below. The sea roared as the battle escalated. Waves crashed against the towering figures of Godzilla and the Megalodon, the force of their clashes creating shockwaves that reverberated for miles. Godzilla's massive tail swung through the air, slamming into the water with devastating force. The Megalodon, with lightning speed, darted to the side, narrowly avoiding the blow, but Godzilla's eyes never left the creature. He was relentless, each strike an attempt to assert his dominance. The Megalodon, undeterred, circled beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to strike. The tension in the air was palpable, a delicate balance between the two forces of nature. Godzilla's massive frame loomed over the water, eyes glowing with fury as he launched another barrage of atomic breath. The energy crackled through the ocean, lighting up the darkened sky. The Megalodon, sensing the incoming threat, dove deeper into the ocean's depths, the force of the blast sending ripples across the surface. As Godzilla's breath sizzled through the water, the battle paused, a temporary lull in the chaos, both creatures calculating their next move. The battle raged on, neither monster willing to give an inch. Godzilla's brute force was overwhelming, each of his movements shaking the ocean around him. His claws dug deep into the rocky ocean floor as he pushed forward, his massive body moving with surprising agility for its size. The Megalodon, however, was no less impressive. With its speed and precision, it darted through the water, striking with deadly accuracy. Every time Godzilla swung his massive arms, the Megalodon was there, a flash of teeth and muscle, always just out of reach. The ocean became their arena, waves crashing around them with every strike. The air was thick with tension, and the sound of the creature's roars and snarls echoed across the sea. Godzilla's atomic breath shot out again, cutting through the water like a jagged beam of pure energy. The Megalodon swerved, narrowly avoiding the blast, but not without leaving behind a trail of bubbles and disturbed water. The fight was becoming more intense, the stakes rising higher with each passing moment. Neither side was willing to back down, and the ocean seemed to tremble beneath their might. As the battle continued, Godzilla began to show signs of wear. His massive form, though powerful, was not immune to the relentless strikes of the Megalodon. The sea monster's teeth had left deep gashes across Godzilla's sides, and the king of monsters was slowing, each movement taking more effort. But his spirit remained unbroken. With a primal roar, Godzilla released another burst of atomic breath, flooding the ocean with blinding energy. The Megalodon, however, had learned from its past encounters, diving beneath the surface before the blast could hit. The water boiled where the breath had struck, steam rising in great clouds. The Megalodon shot upward from the depths, its massive jaws snapping shut with terrifying speed. Godzilla, anticipating the attack, swung his tail around in a powerful arc. The Megalodon's body collided with the tail, sending it spiraling through the water, but the Megalodon quickly recovered, circling back with renewed ferocity. The battle had reached a critical point, with both creatures showing signs of exhaustion, but neither willing to relent. The sea around them was a battlefield, scarred by their fury. The air grew thick with the smell of salt water and ozone, the result of their fierce battle. Godzilla's body, now showing visible signs of wear, stood firm in the water as the Megalodon circled, its predatory instincts on full display. Every time Godzilla moved, the Megalodon was there, a blur of power and aggression, striking from unexpected angles. Godzilla roared in defiance, his chest heaving with exhaustion. But even in his weakened state, he was a force to be reckoned with. With a sudden surge of energy, Godzilla lunged forward, his claws reaching for the Megalodon. The sea erupted as the Megalodon shot upward, teeth bare in a final desperate strike. For a moment, it seemed as though the Megalodon might land the killing blow. But Godzilla's massive tail lashed out again, knocking the Megalodon sideways. The impact sent the creature flying through the air, crashing into the water with a massive splash. The battle had reached its zenith, and the ocean was now the stage for the final showdown between these two titans. The clash of titans had reached its peak, and the ocean was now a chaotic, violent mess. Godzilla's once dominant form was showing cracks, his massive body bruised and battered from the Megalodon's relentless attacks. But the Megalodon too was not unscathed. It circled warily, blood seeping from wounds inflicted by Godzilla's powerful strikes. The sea was their battleground, but the creature's battle had become something more. It had become a battle for survival. With a final powerful surge, Godzilla lunged once more, unleashing every ounce of strength he had left. The Megalodon charged forward as well, its teeth flashing in the moonlit water. The two collided in an explosion of energy, their massive forms sending shockwaves through the ocean. The water exploded around them, creating a massive surge that threw the sea into turmoil. For a moment, it seemed as though neither would rise again. But the ocean, though scarred, would soon find peace once more, when one creature emerged victorious and the other was lost to the depths. The battle had raged on for what felt like an eternity, but a sudden shift in the atmosphere changed everything. Godzilla, though weary and battered, still stood tall, his eyes burning with defiance. But, as he surveyed the ocean, a tremor rippled beneath the surface. It wasn't the Megalodon. No, this was something else, something far more ancient, far more dangerous. The ocean itself seemed to be recoiling in fear, as if it could sense the arrival of a true apex predator, one that had ruled the deep long before either of the current titans had even risen. Godzilla's eyes narrowed, his instincts telling him that the fight was far from over. The Megalodon, sensing a shift in the tides, paused, its massive form drifting in the now calm waters. Suddenly, from the depths, an even greater force erupted. A shadow stretched across the water, darkening the sky as a massive, ancient creature broke the surface. It was the Kraken, a legendary monster, long thought to be nothing more than myth. Its colossal tentacles, each as thick as a mountain range, rose from the sea, reaching for both Godzilla and the Megalodon with terrifying speed. The battle for the oceans had just taken a dark turn, and now, two apex predators would have to face something far older and far more terrifying. The Kraken's arrival shook the ocean to its core. Its massive tentacles thrashed through the water, sending waves crashing violently into the shore. The Megalodon, realizing the magnitude of the new threat, instinctively darted into the depths, seeking the safety of the shadows. But Godzilla, though aware of the danger, stood his ground. He roared in defiance, his tail sweeping the water in a massive arc, causing shockwaves that reverberated through the sea. the Kraken's eyes glowing with ancient malice, locked onto Godzilla. The sheer size of the creature was overwhelming, its tentacles stretching farther than the eye could see. But Godzilla, undeterred, unleashed another blast of atomic breath, striking one of the Kraken's tentacles. The energy of the blast lit up the water, and for a moment, the Kraken recoiled, its massive body writhing in pain. But it was far from defeated. With a guttural roar, the Kraken's remaining tentacles lashed out, attempting to ensnare Godzilla and drag him beneath the waves. The fight was no longer a contest between two titans. Now, it was a battle for survival against an ancient force from the depths of the ocean. The Kraken's immense power was on full display as its tentacles wrapped around Godzilla's massive form. Each one was like a massive chain, pulling Godzilla closer to the water's surface, threatening to drag him into the depths. Godzilla, struggling against the Kraken's grip, fought back with all his might, but the creature's strength seemed limitless. The Megalodon, though smaller, was no less dangerous, and it circled in the water, sensing an opportunity to strike. But it was clear that the Megalodon was torn between two dangers: the Kraken's crushing grip and Godzilla's overwhelming power. As Godzilla broke free from the Kraken's grip with a primal roar, the Megalodon lunged, its massive jaws snapping shut just inches from Godzilla's body. The Kraken's tentacles flailed in all directions, sending shockwaves through the water. Godzilla swung his tail again, knocking one of the Kraken's tentacles aside, but the ancient creature only grew more enraged. In a sudden and terrifying motion, the Kraken's tentacles surged forward, wrapping around the Megalodon. The battle for dominance in the ocean had just become even more deadly, as two apex predators faced off against a creature older than time itself. With the Megalodon caught in the Kraken's grip, Godzilla realized that the odds were quickly turning against them. He had never faced a creature like this, one so ancient, so powerful. But his primal instincts refused to let him retreat. With a bellowing roar, Godzilla pushed forward, unleashing another wave of atomic breath. The energy cut through the water, illuminating the Kraken's tentacles, sending searing pain through its massive form. But the Kraken was not deterred. It twisted its body, sending waves crashing into Godzilla's side. For a moment, it seemed as though Godzilla might be overwhelmed by the sheer size and strength of the Kraken. But in a desperate move, he slammed his fist into the Kraken's main body, causing it to flinch. The Megalodon, still struggling in the Kraken's grip, managed to break free, using its immense strength to escape the grasp of the tentacles. Now free, the Megalodon turned its attention back to Godzilla, its bloodied form rising to the surface, ready to strike once more. The once unlikely alliance between the two monsters had broken down, and now they would fight for survival against both the Kraken and each other. The fight had reached its climax, with the ocean itself seeming to tremble under the force of the battle. Godzilla and the Megalodon, now enemies once more, stood face to face, their massive bodies bruised and battered from the fight. The Kraken, however, was still the greatest threat, and it loomed above them ready to strike again. As the Megalodon charged forward with terrifying speed, Godzilla's primal instincts took over. With a roar, he lunged at the Kraken, aiming for its massive body. The Megalodon, seeing its opportunity, turned its attention to Godzilla, its sharp teeth snapping in fury. The Kraken, however, had other plans. With a final surge of energy, it released its full power, sending out a shockwave that shook the ocean itself. The water boiled as both Godzilla and the Megalodon were knocked back by the force of the Kraken's attack. In that moment, it was clear. The fight was not just for supremacy of the ocean, but for survival. Only one creature would emerge victorious, but the question remained: who would it be? The battle had reached a fever pitch. Godzilla's body, battered and bruised, stood firm amidst the violent waves, his glowing dorsal spines lighting up the darkened ocean. The Kraken, its massive tentacles writhing, towered over the sea, its eyes burning with ancient fury. Godzilla had faced many adversaries in his time, but nothing like this. The sea, which had always been his domain, now churned violently, as if the very waters themselves were complicit in the Kraken's rage. The Megalodon, also injured but still relentless, circled beneath the water, ready to strike. Godzilla knew he could not defeat the Kraken alone. It was too powerful, too ancient. But he would not back down. His roar echoed across the ocean, a call of defiance to the Kraken and the Megalodon. The creatures of the deep seemed to pause in respect, acknowledging the king's challenge. Godzilla's massive foot pounded against the ocean floor, sending shockwaves through the water. The Kraken responded with an earth-shattering roar of its own, raising its tentacles high into the air, preparing for the next assault. The tension was palpable, and the fate of the ocean rested on the outcome of this final clash. The Kraken struck first. With a force that could shake the heavens, it unleashed its massive tentacles, crashing down toward Godzilla with terrifying speed. Each tentacle was like a mountain, moving with unnatural precision, seeking to crush the king of monsters. Godzilla's eyes glowed with a renewed fury as he braced himself, his massive claws sinking into the rocky ocean floor. With an earth-shattering roar, Godzilla swung his tail, knocking one of the Kraken's tentacles aside. But the Kraken was relentless. More tentacles lashed out, wrapping around Godzilla's massive body. Godzilla, struggling but refusing to relent, unleashed a burst of atomic breath, the blue energy slicing through the Kraken's tentacles like a hot knife through butter. The Kraken recoiled momentarily, but its eyes locked onto Godzilla, burning with unbridled rage. The Megalodon, seeing an opportunity, charged forward, its sharp teeth gleaming as it aimed for Godzilla's exposed flank. The battle was now a three-way conflict, with each creature locked in a fight for dominance. Godzilla's massive form was trapped, the Kraken's tentacles wrapping tighter with every passing moment. The Megalodon, sensing an opportunity to finish the fight, lunged again, its teeth flashing as it aimed for Godzilla's vulnerable underbelly. But in that moment, something in Godzilla's eyes shifted. With a mighty roar, he broke free from the Kraken's grasp, his powerful body snapping the tentacles like twigs. He surged forward, moving faster than before, driven by a primal instinct to survive. The ocean itself seemed to tremble beneath his movement, and with a single devastating blow, he slammed into the Kraken's side. The impact sent ripples across the sea, and for the first time the Kraken faltered. The Megalodon, undeterred by Godzilla's power, struck again, this time aiming for Godzilla's exposed side. But Godzilla, now fully enraged, retaliated with a vicious swipe of his claws, sending the Megalodon spiraling backward into the depths. The battle had reached its apex, and now only one creature could emerge victorious. With the Megalodon temporarily out of the picture, Godzilla focused on the Kraken. Its enormous body, once seemingly invincible, was now reeling from the force of Godzilla's attacks. Godzilla, covered in bruises and battered from the intense battle, had found new resolve. The Kraken, though massive, was not invulnerable, and Godzilla's atomic breath had left its mark. With a final surge of energy, Godzilla lunged forward, slamming into the Kraken's underbelly with a force that shook the ocean itself. The Kraken let out a deafening screech as Godzilla's atomic breath burned through its massive body. The sea boiled and churned as the Kraken's body began to convulse, the once mighty predator now faltering in the wake of Godzilla's power. The Kraken's tentacles flailed wildly, crashing into the ocean as its massive form slowly began to sink back into the depths. Godzilla, standing victorious over the sea, let out a triumphant roar, his body glowing with the energy of his final attack. The Kraken, defeated and broken, sank beneath the waves, leaving the ocean eerily quiet. The sea, now calm, stretched out before Godzilla. The battle was over, but the cost had been great. The Kraken was gone, its body sinking beneath the ocean's surface, leaving only ripples behind. The Megalodon, battered and bloodied, slowly retreated into the depths, its role in the battle now finished. Godzilla, though victorious, knew that the ocean was a battleground, and even though he had won this fight, there would always be new threats rising from the deep. But, for now, the king of monsters stood alone, a symbol of power and resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. As the storm clouds began to clear, the first rays of sunlight pierced through the darkness, casting a warm glow across the ocean's surface. The battle was over, and the ocean had found its king once again. Godzilla let out a final roar, his voice echoing across the waters, a warning to any who would challenge his reign. The oceans, for now, were his. The ocean, now calm, stretched out before Godzilla, who stood as a silent sentinel over the world he had once again claimed. The sky was slowly clearing, the dark storm clouds giving way to a soft golden light that bathed the sea. The water, which had been a chaotic battlefield, now lay still, as if the world itself was catching its breath after the fury of the battle. But beneath this calm, something had changed. Godzilla, though victorious, could sense that the fight for dominance in the oceans was never truly over. He was the king, but he knew that the seas were vast, and dangers lurked in places even he could not reach. The Megalodon, though bloodied and battered, had retreated into the depths, its role in the conflict now finished. For a brief moment, Godzilla surveyed the ocean, the calm broken only by the faintest ripple. His eyes, though weary, still burned with the fierce fire of a king. He let out a low growl, as if reminding the sea that he was still here, still watching. The ocean was his, and he would defend it against all threats, no matter how great or small. With one final powerful step, Godzilla turned and disappeared beneath the waves, his silhouette fading into the deep, leaving the sea to reclaim its peace, for now. The sea stretched far and wide, a vast expanse of blue and green. For now, it was peaceful. But Godzilla knew that the ocean would always be in flux, a place of constant change. As he sank beneath the surface, his massive body vanished into the depths, leaving only a faint ripple behind. Below the water, the sea was dark and mysterious, full of secrets and threats that only the brave or foolish would dare to face. Godzilla's presence lingered, a shadow beneath the waves, but his mind was already turning to the future. The Megalodon had retreated for now, but there would always be new threats, new challenges rising from the deep. It was the nature of the ocean to give birth to monsters, and Godzilla would always stand ready to face them. The battle for the oceans was never truly over. It was merely a pause before the next great challenge. As Godzilla vanished further into the deep, the world above seemed to take a deep breath, awaiting the next chapter in the eternal struggle for dominance. Above the water, the calm that followed the battle seemed to last forever. The storm clouds had cleared, and the ocean sparkled in the light of the rising sun. But there was a lingering tension in the air, a quiet sense of unease. The Megalodon was gone, but the power of the Kraken, though vanquished, still loomed over the sea like a shadow. Godzilla had been victorious, but at what cost? The ocean had changed, and so had he. The battle had taken its toll, not just physically, but mentally as well. The sea, once a place of peace, was now a battleground in the eyes of every creature that roamed its depths. Godzilla knew he could never let his guard down again. There would always be new challenges, new creatures rising from the depths. And he, as the king of monsters, would always be there, watching, waiting for the next threat to emerge. The ocean was vast, and even the mightiest of creatures could be overwhelmed by the forces within it. The peace that followed the battle was temporary, but it would have to be enough, for now. As time passed, the memory of the great battle began to fade from the surface world, but the ocean would never forget. Godzilla had restored order for now, but his dominance was always in question. The deep waters would forever hide new threats, each one more powerful than the last, waiting to be unleashed. The Megalodon, though defeated, would always be a force to be reckoned with, its reign over the oceans never fully broken. And the Kraken, despite its demise, had left a scar upon the sea that would linger for generations to come. The ocean was a living, breathing entity, a place where monsters and kings could rise and fall, each one leaving its mark upon the world. For now, Godzilla stood as the undisputed ruler of the seas, but he knew that his reign was fragile. There would always be something beneath the surface, always another battle waiting to be fought. But for now, the ocean had found its king once more, and the world could rest, knowing that its greatest defender had returned to the depths, waiting for the next challenge to emerge. As Godzilla disappeared into the depths of the ocean, his legacy remained. The creatures of the sea, those that had witnessed his reign, would remember the king of monsters and the battle that had determined the fate of the ocean. The world above would move on, oblivious to the dangers lurking beneath the surface. But those who understood the balance of nature knew that the oceans would always belong to Godzilla. He had proven once again that no force in the world could stand against him. The ocean was his domain, and it would be his to protect as long as he drew breath. The sky above cleared, and the world below remained still. But in the hearts of the ocean's creatures, Godzilla's roar echoed across the waves, a reminder that the king of monsters was always watching. And when the time came for the next battle, Godzilla would rise once more, the defender of the deep, ready to face whatever challenge lay ahead. Until then, the ocean remained his kingdom. The ocean was eerily calm, the turbulent waves of the previous battles now stilled, as though the sea itself had breathed a sigh of relief. Godzilla's victory over the Kraken had marked the end of an era, but the aftermath of such a cataclysmic event left its scars across the deep blue. For now, the ocean held its breath, as though it were waiting for the next storm to arise. But in the midst of this temporary peace, a sense of quiet introspection filled the air. Godzilla, though once again the undisputed ruler, stood amidst the vast emptiness of the sea, a solitary figure in an ever-changing world. The sun began to set, casting an orange glow over the water, reflecting the quiet devastation of what had passed. The ocean was vast, and while Godzilla had secured his reign, there was no forgetting the ancient threats buried deep beneath the waves. No matter how much time passed, how many quiet days the ocean might experience, something would always rise from the depths, another creature ready to challenge the king of monsters. Godzilla, with his eyes set on the horizon, knew this truth all too well. For now, however, the sea was his, and he would rule it in silence, waiting for the next call to action. Godzilla had always been the protector of the sea, but even he could not ignore the passing of time. As the night drew near, the calm ocean reflected the stars above, offering a brief moment of peace. But beneath the surface, there were still threats, hidden dangers waiting to be uncovered. The oceans had always been a place of mystery and power, and Godzilla, as the king of monsters, was the only one strong enough to maintain balance. Yet, even a king could not control the tides forever. Deep below, creatures of unimaginable size and strength stirred in the quiet darkness, their movements creating subtle ripples in the vast ocean. Godzilla knew that his reign was not forever, that his power would one day fade, but for now he was the master of the deep. He would continue to rule, fighting off any challenge until the day came when another force would rise to take his place. But until then, the ocean remained his, as it always had been, a testament to his strength and endurance. For now, the peace was his to enjoy, but the knowledge that change would come was never far from his mind. As Godzilla turned his gaze towards the horizon, he felt a strange sense of finality. The ocean before him was vast, stretching out endlessly, filled with possibilities and unknowns. It had always been his domain, a place where he was the protector, the king. But now, something felt different. There was a quiet understanding, a shift in the air that told him that the balance he had fought so fiercely to maintain would one day be tested again. The creatures of the deep were always evolving, changing, and Godzilla knew that he was just one chapter in an endless cycle of battles. He had defeated the Kraken, driven the Megalodon into hiding, but those victories, like the ocean itself, were impermanent. The ocean was a place of constant rebirth, where new threats emerged from the depths, and where kings came and went. Godzilla, for all his power, was no exception. But for now, he was still the king of the ocean, and he would defend it until his last breath, knowing that the time for a new challenger would come, but that it was not yet. As the night deepened and the stars filled the sky, Godzilla's thoughts turned inward. His reign had been long, and his battles many. He had seen empires rise and fall, creatures born and destroyed, and yet the ocean had remained the same. The monsters that roamed its depths were endless, as were the challenges that came with being the king of monsters. But there was also peace in this knowledge, a sense of purpose that came from being the protector of something as vast and eternal as the ocean. Godzilla had lived for centuries, a creature of immense power and ancient wisdom. He had seen the changes in the world around him, and he knew that time was the ultimate force. But his strength would remain as long as he drew breath. And while the ocean was vast and unpredictable, there was one truth that could never change. He would always be there to protect it. For now, as the ocean embraced its king, Godzilla knew that he had fulfilled his duty. But he also understood that the ocean, with all its beauty and danger, would one day call upon him again. Until that time came, he would rest, but always ready for the challenges that lay ahead. And so Godzilla faded into the depths once more, his figure swallowed by the ocean he had so long protected. The waves that had once been filled with chaos and destruction were now calm, the night still and silent. The battle for the ocean had been won, but it was clear that this was not the end. Godzilla would always rise when the sea needed him, when the next challenger emerged. The world above would move on, unaware of the ancient forces that still ruled the deep. But for those who understood the ocean, they knew that the king of monsters would always be watching, waiting for the next storm to come. The ocean would always be his kingdom, and he would reign over it as long as the sea existed. With one last glance at the horizon, Godzilla descended, disappearing into the dark waters below. The world above would continue, but the true ruler of the oceans had returned to his domain, waiting for the next call to rise.